welcome into the Credible Vegetable Report. I guess I don't know if you call it into or at, whatever it is. It's welcome to the Credible Vegetable Report, in or out. I don't know what you want to call it, but you are here listening to Craig Slate and Matt Mandel. Hey, on this week's episode, we'll be updating you guys on the weather watch and how those areas of the country are being affected by all this, I guess, climate change. I don't know. Whatever's going on with the climate, we're going to give you some updates on what's going on there and how it's affecting the farmers out there. We're also going to add into this week's show, we've got a little CPI data, Consumer Price Index data from the month of June. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the economy and what's happening with the shoppers. And speaking of shoppers, we'll touch base on the Kroger Albertsons and what's happening with their whole acquisition plans and the divestitures of some of their stores. We'll talk a little bit about stores getting smaller and how that's affecting shoppers and who likes it, who doesn't like it. We would be remiss if we don't get a little bit of technology out there, so we're going to touch a little bit on the e-commerce space. So guys, hang in there and stick around for the show. Got a lot of good stuff to cover, and I'm going to bring in my good friend, Mr. Matt Mandel. Welcome back, or welcome, I guess, back from last week. I don't know. Welcome anyway. How you doing, man?
Good afternoon, Credible Vegetable Report. I'm doing well. Another sunny day in beautiful southern Arizona. The Matt Mandel Roadshow has taken a pause for a 2-week time span. Next week I will be traveling it again, but we'll figure out whether we're going to do this from Arizona or beautiful Michigan next week. But we'll figure it out for this week.
Well, I think they call that a hiatus. Is that the correct word? You're taking a hiatus.
I think a hiatus is a break, and I do not take breaks. I work from exotic locales.
Well, I was talking about a hiatus from the travel. So you're taking
a travel hiatus. This is
yes.
true. I'm getting to enjoy my own bed for a little while. It missed me.
Yeah. Well, we are glad that you're on travel hiatus and been able to join me here for the last couple of weeks. It's been great to have you on, and we've got lots of good things to talk about today, and kind of run through. And we're going to kick it off. We're going to kick it off with weather, Matt. Something shocking, something we never talk about. I got my jacket on over here. We're going to talk a little weather. I don't know what to tell you other than the fact that it's going to be, I think, 75, 78 here today. I'm going to need a little wrap for the evening hours. How is the weather in Tucson?
Are you trying to piss me off right now? It's hotter than hell. I'm sitting here sweating just talking to you. And sorry, Craig, it's not you.
We're not talking about hurricanes this week, though. No hurricanes, no tropical storms that I know of. Is that correct?
Thankfully, there are no tropical storms or cyclones on the horizon, neither in the Pacific nor the Atlantic, which I'm sure everybody's kind of happy to hear at the moment, considering what we had to talk about the last couple of weeks.
Now everybody's gotten rain, so I talked to different folks, right? So it's definitely rained in Texas. They've got some rain over there. But it's raining down in Mexico too, right? Where they've seen a little bit of rain down in the state of Sinaloa, huh?
Thankfully, on the coast of Mexico, they have received a decent amount of rain, and south central Mexico as well. Up in the northern desert regions, it's still not quite raining the way they would hope, but a little bit of relief from the drought is, greatly appreciated.
Well, I know out west, there hasn't been a lot of rain, and for the folks that aren't real close to the ocean, it has been freaking hot.
I've heard it's a little toasty out there, going on about 2 weeks now of, I don't know if it's record-setting temperatures, but it's definitely pressing the issue in a lot of areas, especially the growing regions.
Well, I do believe it has improved slightly compared to where it was. I mean, yeah, like you said, last 2 weeks, it's been since, when you and I recorded just before the 4th, we were talking about me coming in and seeing the sign that talked about extreme heat, and it was 77. I think it's gotten a little warmer than 77, and in some places, I think over in the desert, out the Palm Desert area, they've been touching that 120 plus mark over there. So it's gotten very warm in the desert here.
The good news is the forecast for the next couple of weeks, while still warmer than normal, should be much more decent. Should be somewhere in the 2 to 4 degrees above average, but still pretty warm for this time of year.
Yeah, yeah, and I think the East has had some pretty warm days. I know certainly not all the way out east, but more Midwest. The Texas guys have been dealing with both combo heat and humidity, and yeah, you get up into the Kentucky, North Carolina area. It's been, I don't know if it's unseasonably warm, maybe slightly warmer than what it normally is, but it's this time of year, it's always freaking hot. I know it is in Texas.
Absolutely. And the humidity is actually here to stay over the next 2 weeks throughout the entire southeast. They're expecting quite a bit of precipitation all along the Gulf Coast. So Texas through Alabama, Mississippi, and into Florida over the next 2 weeks should be fairly wet. So expect that humidity train to keep on rolling.
Keep on rolling, yeah. There's a song there, right? Big
I'm
wheel,
sure there
that's
is.
it. Big wheels keep on rolling, right? Who is
I
that?
think
I
it's
don't
big
know.
wheels keep on turning.
Oh, you're okay. Well, rolling,
Close
turning,
enough. Close enough.
tomato, right? So, anywho, well, that is kind of the weather. No hurricanes. That's good. Got water. Got heat. Nothing should be terribly detrimental to the crops out there. Hopefully, the heat subsides a little bit, and New Mexico has as well has been getting a little bit of rain. And read this week that we talked about hatch chili peppers. I think we mentioned them starting in August. Article I read says the hatch is going to maybe get started a little earlier.
Yeah, I believe they've actually, excuse me, I believe they've actually started harvesting in some areas down there. From what I've seen, the quality looks really good. Thankfully, a lot of the precipitation that's hitting New Mexico is hitting in the northern part of the state. So hopefully it won't have too much of an effect on the hash production, which tends to be, focused on the southern part of the state.
Right. Well, I mentioned in the intro we were going to get into some consumer data, some economic data, if you will. So the CPI report came out last week, I believe it was last Friday, it came out. CPI, for those of you not familiar with the acronym, is Consumer Price Index, and it's the government report that comes out and talks about all things pricing and how they look month over month or year over year. And we were looking at some data. The inflation numbers, right? Big issue. Everybody's yucking. That's been kind of the deal. It's really been the drag on the Biden administration, if you will. It certainly hadn't been the stock market, but it's been the fact that hell, everything's costing much more and continues to cost, and the Fed's been trying to get it down. They've had some success. There's in the index, it's called the urban consumer. So I guess any of you folks that are in the farming communities, maybe this doesn't is not applicable to you, but there was a 0.1% decline in unchanged basically in May versus, or is unchanged in May and 1.1% decline in June. And so I guess directionally, you can say pricing overall is getting better.
It is. When you look at it on a month to month basis, when you look at it across the entire year, there's still quite a bit of far above what the Federal Reserve would like to see. I believe they have a 2% target as far as inflation goes. So we're still trending above that. And, food continues to experience inflation, even if there is a decline across the board. Once you back out food, there's actually a much larger decline. So, it really depends on what you're measuring and what your greatest input is that you're looking at. Gas specifically, I'm sure everybody's noticed that gas prices are coming down. And I think we mentioned in last week's show that, that's good news for the farmers, with gasoline being one of their primary inputs. So that's definitely good news for the farming community. But food pricing, continues to stay relatively unchanged as far as the inflationary numbers go.
Well, and within both of those numbers, yeah, there was a couple of things. One, as you mentioned, you're right. We're not at that 2% Fed rate that they're trying to get to. In fact, if you look at all items year over year, it's 3% up. Uh, and then gas has fallen. It did fall in June. It's a pretty big number, 3.8% on fuel in the month of June. And then, if you look at the overall, it's down about 2% over the month of June for the fuel, the energy index. So it's taking in all types of energy. It was down 2%. So energy being down is a big deal. Now, one place food has not seen any deflation, if you will, and that's the food away from home. So going to the restaurant still costing you a little bit more than it did. It was up about 0.4% for the month of June.
Yeah. And, if you look at food in general, having been, relatively unchanged, although year over year it is down, you wonder if the labor costs at the restaurants is really what's driving a lot of the increase in costs at eating away from home. Something we've touched on pretty much every week since we started doing this.
But for anybody that's looking for a bargain, tell your friends and family, if you look at May to June, fresh fruit and vegetable index dropped 1.5%. So there's the place. I mean, if you're wore out on inflation, go get some fresh fruits and vegetables. They're cheaper.
And
right?
healthier.
And healthier. That's right. Well, thanks to the Credit Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I'm sure somewhere in this, our handy dandy editor guy put in the graph. So when you're taking a look at that, that's who delivered that. All right, let's turn our attention to some other stuff that's going on out there, and this is in the e-commerce space. Now, Matt, I might have talked about this. If I did, I'm going to talk about it again because I talk about stuff all the time repetitively. So I'll just continue on with my theme.
Hadn't noticed.
Yeah, I know you had. So I appreciate that. But so back when the 2000s, the late 1999, early 2000s, this thing that they were coming out with was online shopping. And I thought, man, and then they had food delivery trucks. They're going to bring it to your house. I'm like, heck yeah, everybody's going to get on board with that. And heck no, nobody got on board with it. It was a freaking disaster. The systems weren't ready. Well, buddy, that has now changed. E-grocery sales. That's the electronic kind for those of you out, I don't know, out somewhere don't know what e-grocery is, but 8% in June, baby. It was up 8% in June. That's a big number. It's a $7.7 billion in monthly sales right now for e-groceries. That's a hell of a lot.
Absolutely huge, driven mostly by home delivery. Not to be confused with stuff being shipped to your door, which actually also had a large increase, but we're talking the Instacarts or the Albertsons, Safeway, Whole Foods home delivery, up $0.4 billion just in the month of June. So that's a healthy increase month over month.
So now, are you an Instacarter, or are you? I feel like we've had this conversation, but maybe somebody new is listening, and this is brand new information. But are you an Instacarter?
I am old school. I like to pick up my groceries and break up my drives. I mean, I've got an hour and 20-minute commute, so if I can break that up somehow and stop at the store and pick stuff up, I prefer to pick out especially fruits and vegetables. I'm being in this industry as long as I am, I know what I like, and I like to pick it up myself. So that is one thing I personally will never ever order online. So I am defying the trends. But
And you're defying your age, and you're defying your age too, man. I mean, this old gray-haired man. Hell, I love shopping online.
Hey,
Can't say I do a lot of groceries
online. Would be gray.
Yeah, I can't say a lot of grocery. Mia Sposa, she's into the online grocery shopping. She's a pretty big fan of it, but I still like to go to the store. In fact, I usually like to go to the store 3 or 4 times a week. So that's kind of weird too. So that's me.
It's the European style of shopping.
But something. Are you familiar with MAU or mall?
I don't think I am. Enlighten me.
Enlighten you. So the world, everything's a freaking acronym now. I get a text. I can't, half the time I have to go look up what somebody sent me. It's almost like me in Spanish. It's like, I got to Google it to find out what they're trying to tell me. But anyway, MAU is monthly active users, MAU.
Okay.
And monthly active users for this, which was, again, in this space. I mean, I actually thought after the pandemic, and it did decline. Obviously went crazy during that, but the monthly active users, there were higher order activity in the monthly activity users. So they had more active users of eGrocery shopping than previously had said. In fact, if you look at the graph here, you can take a look at, pickup, it's driving up, curbside or whatever, is at $3.5 billion. But the delivery piece of it is, you're looking at 2.9 and then ship to home another 1.3. So $7.7 billion. And you saw growth in both delivery and ship to home. So not exactly sure. I was looking at that graph. I wasn't exactly sure. And this is June 2023 versus June 2024. So if you're not looking at the graph online, but what was confusing here to me is, and it says down here, includes, delivery, and it says includes first and third party providers, and then ship to home includes common and other parcel carriers. But wouldn't both be delivered to your damn house or business or something? What's the difference between
I'm
delivery
assuming
and ship to home?
delivery. I'm assuming delivery means the retailer is doing the delivery or an Instacart, whereas ship to home is something like Costco or Amazon, where you order it ahead of time and within a few days it ends up getting shipped to your home versus something that's ordered and shipped same day or next day.
Well, this info comes to us from our good friends over at the Produce Book. So thank you guys for the graphical information here, and we appreciate it. Hey there, Cred Heads. Craig Slade here. I just want to take a few minutes to take you through a little bit about what we're trying to do here at the Fresh Cred. Give you an insight into, what's our mission and kind of what's our vision here. The mission ultimately is to drive fresh fruit and vegetable consumption. That's it. We want to do that ideally in the U.S., but if we can do it on a global scale, even better. And how are we going to do that? What's the vision? Well, we're utilizing this platform, which I believe is a great platform that a lot of people are gaining information and knowledge from, which is podcasting and video casting, if you will. And we're going to take and utilize this platform to connect leaders, to connect with the frontline people in the industry that are on the front lines, selling this stuff every day, to eventually connecting with consumers. That's eventually where we're going to go. And we're going to have a full connection between leaders in the industry, frontline workers, all the way to consumers. And we're going to do that with education and information about the industry and what's going on here. So we welcome you to come and join us here at the Fresh Cred and be part of this journey. So if you want to be part of it, hit me up at cslate at thefreshcred.com. That's C, my last name, SLATE, at thefreshcred.com. Shoot me an email, and I will certainly get in touch with you, and we'll talk about how you can be part of this great journey and this vision. We're having a good time. If nothing else, it'll be a lot of fun. So give me a shout. Thanks, guys. On down to our next story of interest, and it's been a story of interest for about the last 2 years, I think now. Kroger still looking to take over the Albertsons Safeway group of stores, at least that based on the reports, right?
It's been dragging on forever, and they don't look to be stopping anytime soon. Though it looks they've been trying to appease the regulators that have been opposed to the merger for some time now by divesting quite a few stores, almost exclusively on the West Coast. With, I believe, Washington and Arizona being two of the highest hit states. So, us personally, I looked at the list of stores. Thankfully, none of them are in my neighborhood, so it's not going to affect me personally. But with 101 stores in Arizona closing, it's going to be quite a few areas that are going to be either underserved or shoppers that are going to have to look for other banners.
Yeah, this is a $25 billion deal. Now, funny thing is, I read that number. I thought, well, $25 billion sounds like a lot of money, but it's only what, 3 months of e-sales.
Exactly. It's tiny. It's
Yeah,
I mean, everything is relative. So when you look at it
yeah,
from that perspective, it's really not much.
yeah.
But then,
So
when you look at the total number of stores that are going to be, um, merged into this 485 total, that's pretty big.
yeah, no, it's definitely going to give Kroger. I would have to say that they'll definitely be the largest retailer in the United States and maybe in the world. I don't know. I guess
So
they could be the world.
if you had to speculate, what's pushing the merger?
If I had to speculate, what's pushing the merger? Why do I think Kroger wants to buy these guys? That's what you're asking, right?
Correct.
I mean, I think it's, well, for me, consolidation is the way the world in a lot of spaces. That's the way businesses typically or industries move. Is they tend to consolidate because margins, as they get smaller, it makes it harder for small groups or independents to make it. And you can, by generating more dollars and by consolidating and gaining efficiencies from that consolidation, you can tend to work with less margin but still deliver good returns. So that's my speculation. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree, and I think a lot of you know, we talk about Walmart all the time and how it continues to grow and continues to pull shoppers from other stores. So I think hoping to get some efficiencies out of this and be able to offer lower prices to hopefully stop the bleeding of these consumers, switching up, going over to the Walmarts and HEB, as we mentioned last year or last week. They continue to pull new shoppers and continue to be ranked number one. So I think there's a lot of that going on, and just trying to stay competitive in an extremely competitive marketplace.
Yeah, yeah, it's probably a more concise way to say what I said for sure. But yeah, stay more competitive in a competitive market space. That's my speculation.
There you go, nailed it.
There you go. Well, somebody that's not getting larger in terms of square footage, but is getting smaller and getting larger in numbers with smaller footprints, and that's Sprouts. Folks over at Sprouts have decided, they've leaned into a smaller footprint, and when I read this, I was taken back a little bit because I really didn't think of Sprouts being a large store. I mean, I already thought they were a small footprint, so I had to actually double read it when it said Sprouts is going into a smaller footprint. I'm like, well, what the hell footprint were they? But they've actually shrunk. They shrunk their stores by, I think it's 23% is what the article said. And they started this back in January 2022. They started this new smaller footprint store, and they did it on the basis of environmental impact. So they shrunk the stores in an effort to improve or lessen the environmental impact by having smaller stores. Uh, Seems to have resonated with the consumer based on the numbers out on their last earnings report. They 50% over from that January 22 since they started at 50% more people visiting the store. That's a big change to have 50% more people coming to your store. But the one that's more relevant is their comp stores were up 3.4%. So that's what every retailer is looking for, is that comp store. But yeah, kind of curious, what do you think about the whole Sprouts small store format?
I mean, I have two things to say. Number one, couching it under the guise of environmental impact seems like some greenwashing to me. I hate to say it, but I don't know that retailers are looking at their environmental impact when looking to shrink a store by 23%. That seems like there may be some factors beyond environmental impact impacting those decisions. And then the other thing that jumps out is if visits are going up by 50% in a much smaller store, how is that going to affect the shopping experience? With that many, is there going to be more people in a smaller space? Sprouts to me has always felt like a very open environment. They have large displays, no high shelving except for usually like over in the little vitamin section. So it makes me wonder how that's going to affect the feel in the store for the consumer.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, they got more people coming in, and yeah, where do they go with them now? They got a smaller store. It's all good stuff. But the guys, the guys and gals across the street apparently are taking some recognition, and whether they're taking a page from the Sprouts playbook or they've just decided to go back to their like one of their old playbooks, and that's Whole Foods. Also said in March it's launching its own small format store.
That I can't help but laugh when they say that they're going to a smaller format. If you remember, they launched Whole Foods 365, which was supposed to feature slightly lower price brands in a much smaller store format, and that was incredibly short lived. I think they started in 2016 and shuttered the idea in 2019. They said at the time, they were lowering their prices across all of uh, their items in the store, and so they felt that the concept was obsolete. And now here we are, 5 years later, and they're going back into a smaller store format. So, whether the format has changed or their pricing strategy has changed, it makes me chuckle that here we are again talking about a smaller format for Whole Foods.
Well, like I say, I can personally speak, kind of like the e-commerce from a personal take. I tend to like the smaller store um, because I'm in the store 3 or 4 times a week, as I mentioned, and when you're in there that much, I'm doing what I was termed Euro shopping. So I'm typically shopping for the next that evening and maybe the next day, and that's kind of how I like to shop. And that's smaller store format fits me good because I can jump in, grab what I need, and jump out. And particularly in both Whole Foods and Sprouts, their perishable departments are front and center and usually well done, and so that also fits my motif.
I'm I'm right there with you, and it could very well be going back to the concept of fighting against the big boys. If you start to you know pare down some of the superfluous items in the store and just stick to the basics with a smaller format, get greater sales on the things that are really driving the shopping experience, rather than saying, do I really need 17 shelves worth of vitamins and supplements?
Yeah, yeah. So well, thanks to the folks over at Supermarket News for some of that info. We really appreciate that. And so for some info that's not in any of the local papers, let's talk about the squash market, man. Let's get down and dirty. It's time to talk markets and what's happening and what in hell's going on in the squash market, Matt.
You want the good news or the bad news first?
Oh my gosh. I always like to start with bad and go to good because I like to finish. It's kind of like my golf game. I like to finish well, not start well.
That's based on what you told me about the back nine on your last round. I'm not sure that's the case.
It is never the case. I don't actually start or finish well. So it's just like a consistent bad. So I don't like that either. But either way, squash markets, give us the bad news. What's going on there?
Man, last week I thought zucchini had finally found its footing in the $8 to $10 range, and it looks like it's slipped even more. A couple bucks off the top, $6 to $8 range, and it seems. I don't know if I had a conversation with a buddy of mine who was, very proud of the zucchini he was growing in his garden, and I said, you're my competition. You better knock that off. He didn't listen, and still has plenty of zucchini left for his family. So I don't know if it's the backyard garden effect that's going on or what, but zucchini is plentiful and it is cheap right now. You kind of couple that with yellow and gray squash. Thankfully, they are doing a little better. Still both of them in double digits, 12 to 14 on yellow and 13 to 14 on gray. So they found their spots. They have their markets, and obviously volume in those items is much smaller than the zucchini. So hopefully we can continue to count on that. And I really hope next week we're not talking about an even more depressed zouk market.
Whew. Yeah, I don't know. We can get much more price deflation there. We can't afford to it. Something's got to give at $6 to $8 on that space. Uh, I like how your camera tends to really want to go into Han Solo over there.
He's Cover up my
This
face.
new fancy equipment we have. I guess when they get tired
Yeah,
of whatever you got to say, it automatically zooms in on him. So I don't know. Mine. I have hell enough just getting my camera set up, before the show actually starts. So anyway, OG Zook is hanging in 17 to 19 on the OG Zook. OG Yellow, we've talked about that. It's in very, very limited supplies, and demand is pretty good on it. It's in that 35 ish range, anywhere from 32 to 36, kind of a deal, if you can find a program. In the cube space, Super Selects a little bit stronger this week, but not much. It's kind of held right in, like we talked last week. The pricing where it's at is really kind of an ideal spot for cubes for everybody involved. But it's holding in at those prices, right?
absolutely. As we mentioned, the summertime is time for cukes to shine, and that market continues to be strong, and pricing is stable with good quality. So I don't foresee any changes in that market in the foreseeable future. Contrast that with eggplants. Eggplant is something that you and I have extensive experience with in the winter months, and the summer
Yeah.
months not as much, but pleasantly surprised. That's a fairly strong market right now, 18 to $20, and continues to trend higher. I don't know if that's an effect of the heat that we've seen in California or the wet weather that came through the center part of the country the last couple of weeks, but market demand is definitely there.
Well, I was at Whole Foods this week, and they had some nice eggplant. But big, good gosh. I mean, I don't know. I doubt it was a 16, but it was some definitely 18 size eggs. Look good. I'm just thinking though, and I know it's very popular, in the marketplace. Uh, I don't know. I mean, do consumers really want that big a damn eggplant? I mean, that's a pretty big
It,
size egg parmesan when you freaking
depends
think.
on the size of your family you're feeding, I suppose. Our household, my kids are not the fondest of eggplant yet. Yet we will get there. So 24 counts are definitely more my speed, but there's a big demand for 8Ts. It seems the larger fruit tends to go more East Coast, smaller
Yeah.
fruit staying out West Coast. So I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe the hot weather is just causing those things to explode, and that's all there is available.
Yeah, stuff looked good, and like I say, all indications, as high as that market is right now, it's likely going to push maybe north of 25 over the next few days. So it's definitely a good time to be in the egg business. Um, and I skipped over as we were talking. We didn't touch on the OG cukes, but they in the cuke space, they actually were under a little pressure this week.
Absolutely, definitely off from, I believe it was the $16 price range that we were talking last week. They're definitely a little softer, 12 to 14 this week. Decent volume coming in out of Baja. We still have stuff coming into Nogales as well. So, I think the price pressure is due mainly to volumes coming in.
Yeah. Yeah. So either way, that mark, the OG piece, is kind of a little weird to have the cubes kind of as strong as they have been, and then have that one the other side of it. You almost never do you see the organics softer or under pressure when the non-organic, the conventional side is firm to strong. So anyway, just kind of a weird dynamic this week in the cube space. Green bells, I don't know. I guess we might as well just mark it. It's now the green bell market for everybody that's doing contracts. $32 next year is the FOB on contracts, because I don't think this thing's ever going to be south of 30 again.
Yeah, we'll just from now on every week we'll say green bells still hot, stamp it, move on.
Yeah. I mean, and it's baffling, given the fact that, I mean, you look at the past numbers and you look at this time of year. It's not baffling for it to maybe be firm to strong, but north of $30 for as long as Greenbelt has been in the summertime, with the domestic crops going. It's It's unusual. It's unusual. So, and good for them. Good for everybody in that and doing the green bells, and good for the farms for sure. But boy, and again, I don't know. Feels like there's no relief inside, but there always is. And one of those items we'll quickly pivot into that is had its day in the sun, so to speak, when it comes to markets, is now in full form of apparently plenty of supply out there, and that's our jalapeno market.
Finally regressing to the mean. It was just a matter of time. We were talking, I don't know, a few weeks back, maybe a month ago. We were pushing $40 a box, and now we're getting closer to single digits on the same box of jalapenos. So
Yeah.
$16 to $18 out on the West Coast, 14 to 16 in Texas. Man, I'll tell you what, that's for as long and as high as that market was. The higher it goes, the quicker it crashes once the volume shows up. So here we are.
Well, what you need to do is, everybody out there, you need to go get you some salsa tomatoes, right? Because salsa tomatoes in the Roma space is going to be the only thing that you're going to find that's affordable enough. But take you some salsa tomatoes at $18 a box, and then get you some jalapenos that you can get on the cheap, and make you some damn salsa and get that demand up on those jalapenos. But yeah, no, the Roma market continues to be on fire and in tight supplies, right?
20 bucks and up if you can find good quality. I mean, that's not to say that there's a lack of good quality, but based on the market pricing, you would assume there was. Again, the summer months tend to be when Romas tend to do better than the winter months, but 20 plus this early in the summer is a little atypical.
Yeah. It is atypical, and I'm usually atypical. So I guess we'll continue with that. And I'm going to atypical close to this. You good with that?
I'm gonna start calling you Roma Tomato.
Call me Roma. Craig Roma Tomato instead of Craig Long Talker. That's my actual official name. So that was just anyway. Yes, I do have that nickname. Don't know why, but anyway, hey man, appreciate it, Matt. As always, it's a blast catching up. Thanks to everybody out there that has tuned in for another week of the Credible Vegetable Report. We really hope you guys are enjoying the show and enjoying what we get back, or the feedback we get back. I want to say a special shout out to Rob Lynch out there, guys. So Rob listened to the show for the first time last week, and then he posted up some comments about what he experienced. Went home on his way home and bought some of the berries that Matt and I talked about last week. Guys, that's the kind of stuff. I mean, in one small way, we're able to instigate and get somebody to go out and stop and pick up some berries or whatever. I mean, that's our little way of maybe increasing consumption. That's the whole idea of this, and sharing some information with folks out there. Really appreciate it, Rob. Thank you very much for listening in. Thank you for the kind words, and thanks for picking up those Driscoll berries. Hey, Driscoll, you can be sure and connect with us if you want to sell some more berries. We'll be right here for you. But anyway, guys,
for those asking, he said the berries were outstanding.
I tried to find some. I haven't been able to find them. So yeah, since he put that post up, I'm been looking for them. So as soon as I get my hands on, I'm gonna be adding to Driscoll sales for sure. So. But anyway, look, guys, thank y'all very much for listening. Please hit us up, LinkedIn. I think we've got an Insta page and Facebook, all that kind of stuff. All I got's a LinkedIn, so if you want to hit me up, you're going to have to hit me there. But stay tuned. We'll be back next week doing it all again, guys. And Matt, we will see you hopefully next week, right?
Sounds good, Senor. That's the plan.
All right, everybody take care, and we're out, guys. We're going. See ya.